When Alara opened her eyes, everything was silent. She was lying on a cold marble floor inside a room she did not know. The air smelled of old stone and candle smoke. Her head ached and her heart felt heavy, as if she had been dreaming of something she could not remember. The last thing she recalled was the Vampire King standing before her, his eyes burning with fury and a strange voice whispering about light and darkness. Then everything had gone black. Now the silence was so deep that she could hear her own heartbeat. She sat up slowly. The room was round and dim, its walls covered in old symbols that glowed faintly like moonlight. In the center stood a tall mirror, but when she looked into it, she did not see herself. She saw another woman, graceful, dressed in white silk, wearing a crown of silver. The woman's face was familiar yet distant. Her eyes were filled with tears, and when she spoke, her lips formed words in that same ancient language Alara had once spoken without meaning to. Then the mirror flickered, and Alara suddenly understood. She was looking into her past life. The woman in the mirror was Seraphina, the Queen of Dawn, who had once ruled beside King Alaric before darkness consumed his heart. Long ago, Seraphina had loved him deeply, but when his thirst for immortal power destroyed their kingdom, she had no choice but to curse him, not to punish but to save him from himself. That curse gave him eternal life but took away the light of his soul. Tears filled Alara's eyes as she watched the memories unfold. She saw the night Seraphina placed her hand on Alaric's heart and whispered the spell that turned him into the King of Shadows. His last words echoed in her ears. "You will return to me even if it takes eternity." And now that eternity had come full circle. Alara fell to her knees before the mirror. If I was Seraphina, she whispered, then why am I here again? Why do I still feel his pain? A soft voice answered, the same one that had spoken through the phone before. Because love, when true, never ends. It only sleeps until it is called again. Meanwhile, above the sealed chamber, chaos filled the castle. The vampire court was breaking apart. King Alaric had disappeared after the night of the gathering. Some believed he had gone mad. Others said he had gone to hunt the voice that spoke through the phone again. But the truth was far deeper. He had hidden himself in the throne of shadows, the place where his curse had first begun. There, surrounded by silence and ancient symbols, he knelt in front of the cold throne that once belonged to his queen. He could still see her face, not as Seraphina, but as Alara. Every smile, every look of fear, every question she asked still haunted him. For centuries, he had ruled the night, believing that nothing could break the curse. Yet now, after seeing her again, everything within him was torn between hope and fear. If she truly is Seraphina reborn, he murmured to himself, then fate has given me one last chance to make peace with what I destroyed. His voice echoed across the hall, swallowed by shadows. Below, Alara wandered through the hidden passages of the castle. The mirror had shown her visions, paths glowing faintly in the dark, guiding her toward the throne room. As she walked, she passed rooms filled with strange things, portraits that moved when she looked away, windows that opened into starless skies, candles that burned without flame. Each room seemed to hold a piece of memory, moments of Alaric's life that had been frozen by the curse. She saw him as a man before he became a monster. She saw him laughing beside Seraphina, holding her hand as dawn rose over their lost kingdom. And she saw the moment his greed for eternal power broke that love apart. The last vision made her heart ache. In it, Seraphina had stood before him with tears in her eyes, whispering, "I will curse you not to destroy you, but to save the man I love." Then she placed her hand on his chest, and his heart turned to ice. Alara touched her own chest as if she could feel that same pain. "No curse lasts forever," she said quietly. "Not when love remembers." When she reached the throne room, she found Alaric standing there, tall, silent, with his cloak flowing like smoke around him. His crown lay shattered at his feet. He turned when she entered, his eyes dark but filled with emotion. "You should not be here," he said softly. "The court believes you dead." "I followed the voice," she said. "It led me to you." He smiled faintly, though there was no joy in it. "The voice has always belonged to fate. It seems fate still enjoys playing with us." Alara stepped closer, unafraid. "I saw the truth," she whispered. "I saw what we were and what we lost." For a moment neither spoke. The only sound was the faint echo of rain falling far above. At last, Alaric said quietly, "You were my light, Seraphina, and I was the darkness that destroyed it. I have carried your curse for centuries, but I never blamed you. I only blame myself." She looked into his eyes, and for the first time she saw not a monster but a man, broken, lonely, and full of sorrow. "Then end it," she said. "End this curse. Let both of us be free." He shook his head slowly. "The curse can only end when one of us forgives, and the other lets go." "Then forgive yourself," she said softly. "Because I already have." For a long moment he said nothing. Then very slowly he knelt before her, the immortal king bowing to the soul who had once cursed him. "You came back," he whispered. "Even after all the pain I caused." "I didn't choose to come," she said, her eyes wet with tears. "But maybe the world chose for me. Maybe love chose." He looked up at her and a faint smile crossed his lips. "Love has always been our curse?" "No," she said, shaking her head. "It's our only redemption." She reached out and placed her hand over his heart. The mark on her wrist and the crescent wrapped in thorns began to glow. A soft light spread through the room, touching the broken throne, the dark walls, and even the cracked crown at his feet. The shadows began to tremble. The ancient phone, hidden somewhere in the castle, began to ring once more. Its sound was low, echoing like the heartbeat of the world itself. The voice spoke again, calm and solemn. "Two souls share one curse. One may live in light, one may live in shadow, or both may fade together." Ilara looked at Alaric, her eyes full of understanding. "Then let us fade together," she whispered. But Alaric shook his head. "No, you have lived once in darkness because of me. Now you deserve light." Before she could answer, he lifted her hand and pressed it over his heart. The glow brightened until it filled the entire room. "This time," he said softly, "let me be the one who ends the dark." The light exploded outward. The curse that had bound him for centuries began to unravel. The walls trembled and a wind swept through the castle like 1,000 sighs of relief. When the light faded, the throne room was empty, except for Ilara, standing alone, her wrist still glowing faintly. The mark slowly disappeared, leaving only smooth skin behind. Alaric was gone. Only his cloak lay upon the floor, shimmering faintly like mist. Years passed. The castle of Umbra was no longer a vampire's palace, but a quiet hotel again, restored to peace. People came and went, never knowing the stories hidden in its walls. A young woman now managed the front desk. Her name was Ilara Venn, though sometimes when she looked in the mirror she felt that she had lived more than one life. She never remembered the stormy night that changed everything, yet she often dreamed of a man with silver eyes standing beneath the moonlight. And sometimes when it rained, the old rotary phone in the grand ballroom still rang, though it had been disconnected for years. One evening, when the sky turned black and thunder rolled through the mountains, Ilara stood alone in that ballroom. The mirrors reflected her softly glowing face. The phone rang again, her heart pounded. Slowly she picked up the receiver. "Hello?" she whispered. For a moment there was silence. Then a voice she had never forgotten, calm, deep and gentle, spoke on the other side. "It's been a long time, my light." Tears filled her eyes as she smiled faintly. "I knew you'd find a way back," she whispered. The line went silent, but the lights in the ballroom flickered. Once, twice, like the heartbeat of a soul that refused to die. Outside, the storm began to fade, and for the first time in centuries, dawn touched the towers of Noctureth again. The rain had been falling since morning, turning the ancient castle's stone walls into mirrors of silver and shadow. The grand building known as Hotel Umbra stood on the edge of the forgotten mountains, surrounded by mist that never lifted. To the world it was a luxury hotel for the rich, but the truth was known only to a few. It was home to the vampire king, Alaric of Noctureth, the ruler of a kingdom that time itself had tried to erase. Among the servants and guards who worked in the great halls was Ilara, a quiet young maid. She had worked there for only a year, yet she had never once seen the king. People whispered that his presence alone could stop a human heart. Some said his eyes could burn through lies. Ilara never believed such tales, though a part of her always felt a strange chill whenever she walked near the west wing, the one where no sunlight ever touched. Ilara was not like the other maids. She did her work silently, always polite, always distant. She had no family, no memory of where she came from. Only one thing made her different, a faint mark on her wrist, shaped like a crescent moon wrapped in thorns. It often glowed faintly when she was upset or afraid. She never knew why. That night the storm grew louder. The wind cried against the tall windows as if the sky itself wanted to break in. The ballroom was empty, its chandeliers unlit, its mirrors reflecting flashes of lightning. Alara was sweeping the marble floor when she heard it. A phone ringing, she frowned. No one ever used the old phones. They were part of the decoration, relics from a century long gone. Yet one of them, the black rotary phone near the grand piano, was ringing. The sound was soft but sharp, like something calling from deep water. Alara hesitated, her fingers trembling slightly. Then she lifted the receiver. "Hello?" she said softly. The voice that answered made her blood run cold. It spoke in a strange rhythm, deep and ancient, not a language she knew. Yet somehow, without thinking, she replied in the same tongue. Her own voice didn't sound like hers anymore. It was smooth, old, full of strange sorrow. She didn't understand what she was saying, but the words flowed out of her mouth like a memory she had forgotten. Behind her, a presence stirred. King Alaric had entered the ballroom without a sound. He stood tall and silent, his black cloak trailing behind him like smoke. His pale eyes that once saw the birth and death of empires, fixed on the maid before him. And when she spoke, his still heart gave a single painful beat. That language, it was Nerethil, the ancient language of immortals, the language of his lost queen. Alara turned slowly, sensing someone behind her. When her gaze met his, she froze. His eyes glowed faintly crimson in the dim light. The room seemed to darken around him as if even the storm feared to touch him. "Who taught you those words?" he asked, his voice low and deep, almost a whisper of thunder. Alara shook her head quickly. "No one, my lord. I don't know how I spoke them. It just happened." Alaric stepped closer. His presence was cold yet strangely magnetic. Every inch of him spoke of power and loneliness. "Do you even know what you said?" he asked again. She looked down, her hands shaking slightly. "No, my king. I don't remember." He studied her face for a long time, then said quietly, "Those words have not been spoken for 1,000 years. And yet you speak them as if you were born with them." She could not find words to answer. The air around them was heavy with tension. Outside, thunder broke again, but it sounded far away, like the world itself was holding its breath. At last the king said, "From this night, you will serve in my private quarters. You will remain near me." Alara's eyes widened. "But, my lord, I am only a maid." "You are something far more," he said softly, almost to himself. Then turning, he disappeared into the shadows. That night, Alara could not sleep. Her heart was restless. She kept hearing the ancient words echoing in her mind. When she closed her eyes, she saw flashes of a world burning, a palace of gold. A woman in white with tears on her cheeks and a man with crimson eyes walking away from her into darkness. She woke up with tears on her pillow. Days passed. Alaric began calling for her often. Sometimes he asked her to read from old scrolls written in the same strange language. She could read them easily, though she had never seen the letters before. Each time she spoke, Alaric listened with a strange expression, something between awe and pain. She didn't understand why the vampire king looked at her that way. His cold eyes softened when she entered, but sadness always followed. He would often ask questions like, "Do you believe in souls returning? Do you dream of other lives? Do you remember a name that is not your own?" Each question left her trembling, though she didn't know why. The staff began to whisper about her. Some said the king was bewitched. Others said she was cursed. One night, while walking through the corridors, she overheard two guards. "She's not human," one said. "She's the key to his curse," whispered the other. "Mark my words, she'll be the end of him." Alara ran from the corridor, her chest tight. What curse, what end? Why did everyone fear her? One evening, the king invited her to the ancient library. The room smelled of old books and dust. The moonlight poured through stained glass, painting the walls with crimson and gold. Alaric was reading a scroll when she entered. "Come," he said softly. "Read this." She took the parchment in her hands. The letters danced before her eyes, and once again she began to read aloud in the old language. Her voice echoed beautifully in the silent room. When she finished, Alaric was standing close, too close. She could feel the cold air that surrounded him. the weight of centuries behind his gaze. That text, he said, is a vow, a binding between two souls. It was spoken by a queen and her consort. Before they destroyed each other, she looked at him in surprise. Why would they destroy each other if they loved one another? He smiled sadly. Because love can become a curse when eternity stands between them. His words struck something deep inside her. She felt a sudden pain in her heart, like grief for someone she had never met. Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. Alaric saw it. His expression softened. You feel it too, don't you? He asked quietly. The echo of something you've lost. Alara could not answer. She turned away, her voice trembling. Please, my lord, I don't understand any of this. Neither do I, he said, but I will find out. That same night, during a royal gathering of vampire lords, the truth began to surface. Alara was serving wine when Duke Varys, a cruel noble known for his thirst for power, suddenly called out, Tell us, my king, is it true that your little maid speaks the language of the dead? The hall went silent. All eyes turned toward Alara. She froze, her tray shaking in her hands. Alaric's eyes darkened. Be careful, Varys, but the Duke only laughed. Careful? I'm only curious. That mark on her wrist, it's not human. It belongs to the old bloodline, the one that cursed you, my king. Her blood could end your curse, but only through death. The words struck like lightning. Gasps filled the hall. Alara stepped back, terrified. I don't understand. I haven't cursed anyone. Varys drew a silver blade, his eyes glinting with hunger. Then let us see if your blood truly shines. Before he could move, Alaric appeared before him, and faster than sight. His hand gripped the Duke's wrist, and the air grew icy cold. Touch her, Alaric said softly, and I will turn this night into eternity. His voice was low, but every creature in the room felt the weight of it. Chandeliers trembled. The mirrors cracked. The wind howled through the windows. The Duke fell to his knees, his blade turning to ash in his hand. Alaric's eyes burned red as fire, and for the first time in centuries, rage filled his immortal heart. Alara's vision blurred. The room seemed to spin, and then she heard it, the same voice that had spoken through the phone days ago. It whispered softly in her ear, the light must die to end the dark. She fell to the floor as everything went black.